Hey, everybody. Republicans basically unanimously in the Senate and only 14 very brave people in the House decided not to vote for Juneteenth as a federal holiday. So I'm sure you're seeing a lot of social media graphics go around that says Republicans decided to vote against the emancipation of slaves as a holiday. Therefore, they support slavery. This is, first of all, insane. So Juneteenth should not be a federal holiday. So Juneteenth, at its best possible reading, is a day to remember news that hit Galveston, Texas about the emancipation of slaves. Something that we're all very happy about. That's not what this is about. We know that this is not what this is about. This is not about the emancipation of slaves. This is instead a new Black Independence Day. We already have the Black National Anthem. We already have people kneeling at NFL games. We have hyper corporations that are becoming hyper woke in every way imaginable. And now all of a sudden we have a competitor against July 4th. That's what this is all about. This is about putting a federal holiday to be a competitor against July 4th. Now, if we really wanted to celebrate the emancipation of slaves, we should celebrate September 22nd, 1862, when Abraham Lincoln, one of the greatest presidents in American history, emancipated the slaves. Why would we not celebrate that day? Or why don't we celebrate the end of the American Civil War? That would probably be a pretty important day where we celebrated the official end of the war. Instead, a day in June, on June 19th, is now the new Independence Day. So why would you have a competitor against July 4th? Well, for those of us that know the current agenda that's happening in our country, which is to try to debase, destroy, and delegitimize American history, of course you would try to find a date as close to July 4th as possible. You would try to get as close to the 4th of July and try to say that's the racist Independence Day. The anti-racist or the Black Independence Day is June 19th. And look at what the own words are of the people that are pushing forward for Juneteenth. This person by the name of Peniel E. Joseph, who is the head of the Study for Race and Democracy at the LBJ School of Public Policy in Texas, says, quote, Juneteenth still offers a bedrock foundation to make last year's watershed moment of racial and political reckoning into a transformative process that can last. They're saying the private part out loud, that Juneteenth is not about emancipation. Juneteenth is about all of a sudden us having a federal holiday where we talk about racial identity politics. They might as well call this the Ibram X. Kendi, Patrisse Cullors, or the Nicole Hannah Jones 1619 Project holiday. And what's amazing is that conservatives are okay with this. Some are. They vote for it or they're afraid to question it. The answer is because, the reason why I should say, is because they're afraid of being called a racist. Well, actually, I think this is going to make America more racist. All of a sudden, we have an entire day that, first of all, the symbol of Juneteenth is the African flag, not the American flag. Don't believe me? Well, the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, she actually shows, and listen to her statement right here, the African flag is now in Chicago instead of the American flag. Watch.
I, like many others, didn't even know anything about Juneteenth until I was an adult. And that's because it has never been treated with the reverence that it should be.
Is that actually going to help bring the country together? Is that actually going to help heal us? Is that going to harmonize our differences? You see, Abraham Lincoln said it the best at the Gettysburg Address. The reason we celebrate July 4th, 1776 was obviously because of the Declaration of Independence, where it says very clearly, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve political ties or bands connected with one another. And in there they say, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Boom! All men created equal. That's a big deal. And Abraham Lincoln, delivering the Gettysburg Address, November 19th, 1863, 272 words that changed the course of history, surrounded by carnage and not speaking for very long, Abraham Lincoln said, 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation. What is he saying? He was saying our founding was in July 4th, 1776. That was a big realization. Now, what happened in the year 1776? Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense, Adam Smith wrote Wealth of Nations, and George Mason also passed the Virginia Bill of Rights, which put in the protection of these rights into Virginia, which eventually became the United States Constitutional Bill of Rights in 1791, 4 years after 1787. Now, the significance is this. Should we have a federal holiday based on color? That would be a bad idea. And why do we even need a competitor to July 4th? The summer used to have, the climax of the summer used to be that people, regardless of your skin color, your background, where you come from, you would celebrate July 4th and be proud of it. You would be proud of it for very good reason, because no matter where you come from, no matter what your belief is, we are all Americans on that day. But now the new symbol is going to be a day to try to say that we want to emphasize racial identity politics. I want you to ask yourself a question fairly. Have you ever seen the left hijack something for their use? Of course, and they've already hijacked this before it's even started. In fact, we have members of Congress that are now singing the Black National Anthem. You didn't know we had a Black National Anthem? Well, we do. And they're trying to commemorate Juneteenth as part of that. You see, if we're serious about actually moving forward as a country on any sort of these issues, shouldn't we de-emphasize race and care more about someone's spirit or their soul and not their skin color? We know how this is going to be used. I want you to ask yourself this question. In 5 years or 10 years, do you think July 4th or Juneteenth is going to be more emphasized by the corporate class, by Hollywood, by celebrities, or by people in charge? We know the answer to that. July 4th now has a competitor. And if you don't like that, you're a racist. Forget the fact that in 1775, we had the first anti-slavery convention ever in the world held in Philadelphia. Right after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Vermont abolished slavery. Did you know that 9 states, by the time the United States Constitution was ratified in 1787, had already abolished slavery? So the slaves were starting to be freed actually during the ratification of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. But that's not enough for the critical race theorists. And because of weak Republicans and people that don't know their history, and they don't know the left, they don't know now they have just handed an entire federal holiday under virtue signaling. All signaling, no virtue. Now, some conservatives say, well, we should own this day as a liberation of the slaves. Not necessarily disagreeing with that. Is that really what's going to happen? We know what this is. No one's actually talking about the emancipation of slaves. Instead, they're talking about how racist and awful we are. Just go read the documents of why they think Juneteenth become a federal holiday. If things do not change, it's an imperative not to change them. The cult of progress continually wants to debase and destroy the tradition of history. To try to say, we need a new national Independence Day because of our racial awakening. Did you know that in Thomas Jefferson's original handwriting in the Declaration of Independence, he was blaming King George for bringing the scourge of slavery to our country? Do you know that Thomas Jefferson, on March 2nd in 1807, said no new slaves coming into the United States? Why don't we have that as a national holiday? March 2nd, 1807. Well, now we have a day off to hear how racist we are. Regardless of what the day actually means, the left will inevitably pervert it, use it, and the corporate class and the people in charge will hijack it for their own purposes. Instead, we should be re-emphasizing July 4th, 1776, not giving the 1619 Project their own federal holiday because we're afraid we're going to be called a racist. Abraham Lincoln knew our founding was July 4th, 1776. And putting a competitor just 2.5 weeks before it, cutting in line and emphasizing that instead, is a time-old strategy and tactic used by the people that wish to supplant and destroy. It's a strategy that they're trying to use, and they've been very good at it. Juneteenth should not be a federal holiday, but it will be. And I guarantee you in 10 years from now, that's going to get more focus, more emphasis, more funding by the corporate class and the people in charge than our beloved July 4th. And that's the way it is. Share this video, everybody. Juneteenth should not be a federal holiday. Instead, let's learn our history and learn about the beauty of the American founding and how slavery was already on its way out by the time Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. Subscribe to our podcast. God bless you guys.